All right, let's jump right into this because the clock is literally ticking. Today, we're digging into something that impacts, well, pretty much all of us. We're looking at the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget's brand new analysis of the 2026 Social Security Trustees Report. And honestly, the findings? They're definitely a wake up call. Before we really get going, I want to say a huge welcome to our family, friends, and clients tuning in. This video explainer was created by Steve Stern, CFP. Look, there is just so much noise, rumor, and let's face it, wild speculation out there about the future of Social Security and Medicare. Our whole goal today is to cut right through that noise. We're going to stick strictly to the numbers, the history, and the hard facts from the nonpartisan actuaries. No spin, just what you actually need to know. Okay, let's dive into this. Notice that steep line taking a nosedive. That represents the Old Age and Survivors Insurance Fund. That's the main pot of money paying out retirement benefits. According to the absolute newest projections, this fund is on track to hit a brick wall and become fully insolvent by 2032. Since we are in 2026 right now, that leaves us with a startling reality: a runway of exactly 6 years before those specific reserves are completely gone. 6 years. It's really not that far away. So let's break down what that timeline actually means on the ground. The primary retirement fund, the OASI, runs dry in 2032. Now, you might hear folks throwing around the year 2034, but that 2034 date assumes Congress actually passes a law to combine the retirement fund with the disability insurance fund, which happens to be in slightly better shape. But even if they do that, it only buys us 2 extra years. What this means in real terms is that the year 2032 is when today's youngest retirees turn 68. They're walking right into this massive vulnerability just as they transition fully into retirement. Now, we really need to clear up what the word insolvency actually means here, because it does not mean Social Security is just vanishing into thin air or dropping to zero. It's a pay-as-you-go system, right? But by law, the program absolutely cannot spend more money than it brings in through revenues once that reserve trust is gone. And since incoming payroll taxes will only cover about 78 cents of every dollar owed, the law triggers a massive, automatic, across-the-board benefit cut of 22%. Boom, just like that for everyone. Let's take that abstract 22% and make it real. What does that actually do to a household budget? Well, the committee's analysis shows that if Congress lets this automatic cut happen, a typical couple retiring in 2033 is looking at an $18,400 annual drop in their expected benefits. Think about that for a second. Losing over 18 grand a year on a fixed income, that's not just a minor adjustment. That forces fundamental, painful changes to housing, healthcare, and your overall quality of life. To figure out why we're in this mess right now, we kind of have to look back. We are facing the largest financial imbalance in the program since 1977. We're actually closer to insolvency today than at any point since Congress made those huge bipartisan reforms to save the program back in 1983. Back then, they raised the retirement age and bumped up payroll taxes to avoid a crisis. Today, that overall 75-year actuarial shortfall has ballooned to 4.42% of payroll. Put simply, the program is staring down a $31 trillion deficit over the long term. Trillion, with a T. So you might be wondering, why did the projections get so much worse this year compared to last? Well, the actuaries pinpointed 3 specific drivers. First, lower fertility rates. People are having fewer kids, meaning fewer future workers paying into the system. Second, lower assumed immigration. Again, fewer immigrants coming in translates to fewer working-age folks contributing those payroll taxes. And third, the recent legislation known as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, or OBBBA. This new law actually reduced how much revenue the government collects from taxing Social Security benefits, and that just drained the fund a bit faster than anyone previously expected. And here is the absolute kicker. This perfectly highlights the unforgiving price of just waiting around to fix the system. The committee made it very clear. Those older, popular fixes, like simply lifting the payroll tax cap so higher earners pay more, they aren't enough to save the program by themselves anymore. The math has just deteriorated way too much. Because we are down to a 6-year runway, every single year lawmakers wait to implement changes, the more aggressive and, frankly, painful those final solutions are going to have to be. The contrast between acting today versus kicking the can down the road is just stark. As you can see, if Congress acts right now, in 2026, fixing this would take an immediate 34% increase in the payroll tax rate, or a 25% cut in total benefits. But if they wait until 2034, when the combined funds dry up, that required tax hikes skyrockets to a nearly impossible 40%. The sheer probability of legislation happening soon is driven entirely by this brutal math. They have to act because a 40% tax hike or a sudden 29% benefit cliff in 8 years is just economically and politically disastrous. Okay, so what are the actual bipartisan solutions being discussed to keep the program alive? The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget has a trust fund solutions initiative pushing a few key proposals, which we've broken out here as key takeaways. First up, a six-figure limit, which adjusts how benefits are calculated for the highest earners. Second, a COLA cap. This would rein in the annual cost of living adjustments to really slow down how fast payouts grow. And finally, an employer compensation tax, which broadens the tax base by taxing the fringe health benefits employers provide. These are the serious mathematical options on the table right now to protect workers and retirees. Wait, before we wrap up, we absolutely have to talk about the compounding factor here. Just 1 year after the Social Security Retirement Fund is projected to run out, the Medicare Hospital Insurance Trust Fund, that's Part A, faces its very own insolvency in 2033. If nothing changes, beneficiaries are going to get hit with an automatic 11% cut to their hospital coverage payments. So less than a year after seniors see their monthly checks slashed by 22%, their access to critical hospital care could be severely compromised. It is a brutal 1-2 punch that makes comprehensive legislative reform absolutely urgent right now. So what's the bottom line here? The cost of congressional inaction is a guaranteed financial crisis by 2032. Policymakers have a rapidly shrinking window to phase in real pro-growth solutions so that all of us actually have time to prepare. I know this is heavy stuff, but being informed is absolutely your best defense. And please remember, if you ever want to discuss this topic and how it might impact your specific financial plan, you can talk to me, Steve, anytime. The door is always open. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I'll leave you with this. If a 22% cut to your income happened tomorrow, what is the very first thing you'd have to change? Think about it. I look forward to our next conversation.